WBOC TV News, and once again I say, I'm John B. Greenberger. It's a good evening.
Welcome to our special broadcast celebrating 7 decades of serving Delmarva. I'm Steve Hammond.
And I'm Jacqueline Carley. Back in 1954, if you turned on your TV, you would see a test pattern, much like you saw at the beginning of this broadcast. But at 7:15 p.m., John B. Greenberger, the first face of WBOC, came on the air.
And that marked the beginning of WBOC TV 70 years ago. Since we went on the air, we have brought you countless stories that shaped Delmarva, from major leaps forward at NASA Wallops Flight Facility to a poultry company setting up shop in Salisbury.
WBOC became a trusted source for the community soon after we hit the air. Jimmy Hoppa gives us a look back at some crucial moments on Delmarva from the first half of our history.
One day after WBOC went on the air, tragedy struck in Kent County, Maryland. July 16th, the Chestertown Fireworks and Munitions plant was rocked by a devastating 90-minute-long series of explosions, felt as far as 40 miles away. 9 women and 1 man working at the plant lost their lives that day. More than 50 others were injured. In 1959, Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. served as the commencement speaker at the University of Maryland Eastern Shore. It would be his only appearance on the shore. 1961 brought the first successful launch from the NASA Wallops Flight Facility. Explorer 9 was launched atop a Scout X-1 rocket to study the thermosphere and lower exosphere. In 1963, a breakthrough in civil rights. The Delaware General Assembly outlawed racial segregation, but racial tensions still ran high. The Cape May Lewis Ferry began operation in 1964, crossing a 17-mile stretch between Lewis, Delaware and Cape May, New Jersey. The ferry's launch was marked by parades and celebrations honoring a feat decades in the making. Racial tensions came to a head in 1967, with riots not only here on Delmarva, but also across the Bay in Baltimore and Washington, D.C., mirroring the violence nationwide. On July 24th in Cambridge, a Black Power activist told the crowd, if Cambridge doesn't come around, Cambridge got to be burned down. Hours later, Pine Street Elementary School in the black section of town was set on fire. In 1968, the Salisbury Mall opened its doors. It was Delmarva's very first enclosed, climate-controlled shopping mall. That same year in Salisbury, Purdue Farms opened its first poultry plant, allowing the company to become fully integrated. In 1973, the parallel span of the Chesapeake Bay Bridge was added more than 20 years after the original span opened, connecting Delmarva to the Western Shore. June 27, 1977, a devastating fire consumed a Salisbury landmark when the old Wicomico Youth and Civic Center went up in flames. November 1st, 1980, Mid-Atlantic Communications, principally owned by Delaware native Thomas H. Draper, purchases WBOC. Draper will sell off the WBOC radio stations to concentrate on television. Draper continues to guide WBOC into the 21st century. In 1985, honorably discharged former Marine Kirk Bloodsworth was convicted of sexual assault, rape, and first-degree premeditated murder for the 1984 rape and murder of a 9-year-old girl in Rosedale, Maryland. He maintained his innocence for the duration of his trial and incarceration. After spending nearly 9 years in prison, Bloodsworth became the first American sentenced to death row to be exonerated by DNA evidence. The real killer finally identified in 2003 as Kimberly Shea Ruffner. In Sussex County, Pumpkins soared through the sky in 1986, marking the very first pumpkin chunking.
Stay with us. We'll catch up with an old friend who told unforgettable stories while hundreds of feet in the sky. And later, from a worldwide pandemic to a rocket explosion in Accomack County, we'll take a look at some of the top stories from the second half of the station's time on the air. WBOC, 70 years of serving Delmarva, continues.
Welcome back to our special broadcast celebrating WBOC's 70th anniversary of serving Delmarva.
There is really just one person who was the main player for the success of WBOC over all these years. Our late owner, Tom Draper, who served as the guide to our moral obligation to serve Delmarva. After owning a couple of Milford radio stations for 13 years, Tom Draper bought WBOC in November of 1980.
Okay, I buy it. You hold the paper 2 years at 10%. That sounds outrageous right now, but 10% for 2 years, interest only.
From that point on, his son Hank says it was his passion.
He loved this company. He loved the business of broadcast. Yeah, I know he started in radio and got into television, and he really loved the the concept of selling advertising, promoting local businesses, gathering the news, just the whole entire package of everything that's involved with the television business.
Over the next 37 years, Tom Draper was never afraid to invest heavily in new technology. The Newsplex, Chopper 16, and high-tech control rooms. He believed it was necessary to compete with bigger TV markets that surround the peninsula.
However, he always said and he always believed that the people at the station were the heart and soul of the business. I mean, you can have all the bells and whistles, but it's really the people that drive the train.
In 2017, Tom was on a roll. He had just celebrated 50 years in broadcasting.
I was a committed marketer and grower of WBOC, and I was committed to the fact that I thought news and weather and all information was the core of our business.
And then just a few weeks later, tragedy struck on a bright, sunny fall day in 2017. Welcome to WBOC News at 4. I'm Steve Hammond, live in Baltimore, where we have a very difficult story we are covering tonight. The owner of WBOC, Tom Draper, was hit while riding his bike this morning in Sussex County. Right now, Tom is at shock trauma just a short distance from here. He is in very critical condition. Late word is he is in surgery right now. Tragically, Tom did not survive. He died at the age of 76, and thousands turned out for an emotional memorial service. For Tom's 4 children, in the midst of tremendous grief, they did what they say he would have wanted them to do. They rolled up their sleeves and got to work, investing in and growing what is now Draper Media.
You know, our challenge is to not only maintain, because if you just maintain, you're falling behind. So we've been expanding, we've been growing, we've been continuing to invest.
And boy, did they. Under the leadership of now CEO Molly Draper Russell, Draper Media includes 7 TV stations, 7 radio stations, and multiple digital platforms.
We're trying to represent everything he stood for in the best way we can, and I feel like we're doing a good job, and he would be proud, and he would be pretty amazed of some of the things that have transpired, you know, with our business since he's passed away, and hopefully he's smiling down and happy.
One of the most iconic additions Tom Draper brought to WBOC took off 19 years ago. Chopper 16 has been an integral part of every broadcast since 2005, and it has brought us some amazing views from shore to shore. Todd Carley brings us a few of them with the help of an old friend.
For the first time in a few years, Captain Willie Dykes took to the skies in Chopper 16, as a passenger this time. Captain Willie was the very first pilot for WBOC and Chopper 16.
I became the first pilot for WBOC completely by accident. It was just a wild chance. I was ending a contract that I'd been on for like 15 years and had 2 kids in college, needed a flying job, and WBOC needed a helicopter pilot, so it was pure serendipity.
Flying across Delmarva in Chopper 16.
It didn't take long for Willie to not only be the pilot, but appear on air, giving reports from high in the sky. And Willie tells us it didn't take long for the popularity of Chopper 16 to catch on and be embraced by Delmarva.
One morning, just about dawn, we're flying up across the Nanticoke River just south of Vienna, and there were a couple of watermen that were putting their nets, getting their boats ready to go to work. And they looked up and they saw me, and I looked down and I saw them, and we waved at each other. Like they knew me, I knew them. We're both going to work. That's when I knew I was part of the scene here on the shore.
And the scenes that Chopper 16 have captured over the last nearly 2 decades have been memorable, to say the least. From drifting by some low-level clouds to soaring high above with eagles. Chopper 16 has also been on the scene for breaking news when it happens on our peninsula. Tornadoes ripping through homes, a military drone crashing in a marshy area not far from Salisbury. There was the heartbreaking discovery of horses malnourished and dying on a local farm, and the night a rocket from Wallops Island barely made it off the launch pad before crashing back down to Earth. Plus, Chopper 16 is always overhead for the events that make Delmarva unique. From the boats coming in from a day of fishing during the White Marlin Open to capturing the ponies making their annual swim to Chincoteague Island. Chopper 16 has become an integral part of WBOC, providing a vantage point for news that is otherwise unattainable.
You can show people with a change of focus, you can show them what's going on and here's where it's happening. You zoom in and show exactly what's happening, and then zoom out and show this is where it is. And that was something that's almost impossible to do without a helicopter.
Chopper 16 has only been around for a little more than a quarter of WBOC's 70-year existence, but it's not going anywhere and will continue to provide Delmarva with a unique perspective from high in the sky for years to come.
When we come back, the legacy of 2 unforgettable Eastern shoremen. Also, take a trip down memory lane with a special WBOC viewer. And later, Berlin takes the spotlight from Hollywood. Those stories when our 70th anniversary celebration continues.
Welcome back to our special broadcast celebrating WBOC's 70th anniversary of serving Delmarva.
Over the course of 70 years, we were blessed to have 2 excellent storytellers. Hunter Landon recently went to Crisfield, where the tales from Travels with Charlie and Scorchy's Corner are still told.
From the serious,
he has one of Delmarva's larger collections of political memorabilia,
to the heartfelt,
there is no generation gap at Elmer's Market. The aged become young at heart, and the young become part and parcel of a make-believe world.
to the irreverent.
It must have been meant to be. The object of my affection is named Arnold.
If you were not around during Scorchy Tall's remarkable more than 2 decades at WBOC, then it might be hard to understand his impact. The late broadcaster may have put the TV camera down 26 years ago, but it's hard to go to Crisfield today and not hear of his influence.
The Asian boys from all corners of Crabtown start assembling around 2 o'clock each afternoon on the city dock to get choice seats on the liar's bench.
In particular, in a place that meant a whole lot to Scorchy, the Crisfield City Dock.
It was his daily thing to come down to the dock and see what was going on.
Kevin Evans says for many, Scorchy was more than a reporter, but a neighbor and a dear friend.
For someone who was a mini celebrity, he didn't act like it. He acted like he was just regular person, not regular nice guy here, there, and I guess that's what kind of made access to the people and and stop, talk to anybody.
Scorchy did not just tell stories, he told people stories, particularly the people who did not always have a news crew showing up at their door.
It's been 10 years since we last visited with an Hancock's Willie Crockett.
And when Scorchy's longtime photographer Charles Paparella launched his own segment, Travels with Charlie, in 2002, he would follow up on Scorchy's Corner.
I was with Scorchy that day in 1995, and I saw for myself the profound respect these two great artists had for one another.
He was just good at what he done. I mean, you know, he knows how to tell a story.
Two Eastern Shoremen who left their mark on WBOC and Delmarva.
We brought the news to our early viewers with the help of these old cameras and these control boards, and we found someone who remembers those early broadcasts. Tamika Keenan-Norman introduces us to June Midget of Delmar, and she came back to the Newsplex 70 years later to share a few memories.
My first memory of WBOC is walking through that door in this lobby, and we peered through that window. It was in July of 1954, and it was so exciting to see a live broadcast.
A lot at WBOC has changed in 70 years. The studio has been transformed into the Newsplex, and of course, all of the original on-air people are gone. But June came back, and she was back recently to watch a new broadcast and noticed some big differences right away.
How it's expanded so much, and all of the equipment that you have that makes it what it is today. I mean, WBOC's come a long way.
And he has an earpiece. You can't see it. And there's a producer and a director in there. And the producer is running the teleprompter, and the director is talking to him, giving him instruction, like turn to camera 1, turn to camera 2, turn to camera 3.
Gone are the days of cameramen on the studio floor, and live commercials are certainly a thing of the past. June was able to see firsthand a WBOC operation 70 years after her first. After the broadcast, a trip down the main hallway brought back even more memories.
Just the down-homeness from him, talking about the Eastern Shore. Oh my goodness.
Okay.
Yes.
At WBOC, our goal is to look out for our neighbors here on Delmarva like their family. June has been a family member for 70 years now.
When we finally got a TV and the little rabbit ears on the TV and watching WBOC, there was nothing like it. Enjoyed every minute of it.
So our deepest gratitude to June for not only visiting, but for being with us here at WBOC since the very beginning.
Coming up, our story continues with a look at some of the big stories from the last 35 years, from the opening of a well-known mall in the early 90s to the recent tragic death of a teenager near Berlin. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to our special broadcast celebrating WBOC's 70th anniversary of serving Delmarva.
Two signature foods in Delaware come together for the first Apple Scrapple Festival in Bridgeville, and the deaths of two law enforcement officers in back-to-back years.
Jimmy Hoppa looks back at some of the most talked about stories over the last 3.5 decades.
1990 saw the debut of the center at Salisbury on Route 13, which ultimately led to the demise of the old Salisbury Mall. In September of 91, a 17-year-old Salisbury State College student was stabbed to death in the bathroom at the Salisbury Mall. Heather Miller's killer, David Anthony Boyd, was sentenced in 1993 to life without parole. 1992 brought the first Apple Scrapple Festival to Bridgeville, Delaware, and with it, some 2,500 visitors. It now brings in more than 25,000, eager to get their hands on apple fritters and scrapple sandwiches. You're taking a look inside the old Campbell Soup plant in Salisbury back when it was in operation. More than 800 jobs were lost when it shut down in 1993. May 16, 1994, John Thanos executed for the robbery and murder of 18-year-old Gregory Taylor Jr. of Hebron, who had given Thanos a ride. Thanos was also facing death for the murder of two teenagers he killed after robbing them in September of 1990. Thanos confessed to the killings in gruesome detail, showing no remorse from the time of his arrest all the way through to his execution. December 24, 1995, a memorable Christmas Eve on Delmarva for all the wrong reasons. 21-year-old Roy Davis shot to death inside the center at Salisbury Mall during an apparent dispute between rival groups. 12 hours later in Norfolk, Virginia, 23-year-old Gabrielle Cannon and 19-year-old Terrence Teagle were arrested for murders. Also in 1995, just before the new year, Dover Down Slots opened for business, boasting 500 video slot machines. 1998 marked the final year in business for Johnny and Sammy's, a beloved Salisbury restaurant visited by people all over the Eastern Shore. 1999, Delaware lawyer Thomas Capano sentenced to death for the murder of his former lover, Anne Marie Fahey. Capano was a well-known figure in the state's political community. Fahey was a secretary for Delaware's then-governor, Tom Carper. In 1999, Hollywood hit Delmarva with Runaway Bride, starring Julia Roberts, becoming the first major motion picture filmed in or around Berlin. In October of '99, a plane accident in Idaho claimed the lives of former Salisbury Chief Colburn Dykes, Salisbury Public Works Director Will Elliott, and Elliott's cousin William Pryor. They were on a hunting trip together. Wycomico Youth and Civic Center served as the site of their funeral, attended by thousands in the community. In 2002, a double homicide rocked the resort town of Ocean City. Benjamin and Erica Seifert were arrested for the murders after shooting and dismembering a Virginia couple they had met earlier in the night. The grisly crime and subsequent trials gained national attention. Also making national headlines, the death of Frank Perdue, April 1st, 2005. The Maryland farm boy became the face of Perdue Farms, transforming the company into the third largest chicken processor in the country. In 2008, another prominent Delmarva figure, then U.S. Senator Joe Biden, was elected Vice President of the United States. On December 16, 2009, Delaware pediatrician Earl Bradley was arrested for rape and exploitation after reports he inappropriately touched patients. He was ultimately convicted on 24 counts, consolidated from 529 counts of molesting, raping, and exploiting a total of 127 child patients. Also in 2009, an unthinkable crime on Christmas Day that shocked Delmarva. 11-year-old Sarah Foxwell is abducted from her Salisbury home. Thousands gathered day after day at the Arthur W. Perdue Stadium, participate in a massive community search. Her body ultimately found in a wooded area north of Salisbury. Police charged Thomas Leggs Jr. with her death. Leggs, a registered sex offender, admits his guilt and receives 2 life sentences. Sarah's death brings Maryland legislative change in the form of Sarah's Law, which toughens laws against sex offenders. From November 2012 through April 2013, Accomack County was rocked to the core with an unprecedented spree of nearly 80 arson fires. Tanya Bundick and her fiancé Charles Smith were arrested and connected to most of the fires. Bundick's expected to stay behind bars until September of 2025. Smith was released in October of 2023. Delmarva made world headlines on October 28, 2014, when fire lit up the sky as an unmanned Antares rocket exploded at NASA Wallops Flight Facility just seconds after liftoff at 6:22 p.m. Thankfully, no injuries. However, damage done to the portions of the facility. The $237 million rocket was carrying a Cygnus spacecraft with thousands of pounds of supplies on board for the International Space Station. In 2017, WBOC traveled the distance to Ecuador with the Salisbury Zoo to bring a vulnerable species of bear back to Delmarva. Andean bear Pinocchio was brought in to mate with female bear Chaska to help with the bear's captivity population. In 2020, former Senator and Vice President Joe Biden captured the White House. His victory over Donald Trump came after several days of uncertainty as election officials sorted through a surge of mail-in votes. He is the highest-ranking politician to ever come out of Delaware. Also in 2020, Delmarva was turned upside down as a global pandemic took hold. Coronavirus forced the world to shelter in place, including us here at WBOC, as our anchors continued broadcasts from the safety of their homes. April of 2021, Delmar lost a man dedicated to serving the community. Delmar Police Corporal Keith Heacook was brutally attacked while responding to a call. Convicted killer Randon Wilkerson was given 2 life sentences plus 212 years and 30 days behind bars. A year later, another tragedy hits Delmarva with another officer killed in the line of duty. In June of 2022, Wycomico County Sheriff's Corporal Glenn Hilliard was gunned down in Pittsville. His killer, Austin Davidson, sentenced to life without the possibility of parole with 66 additional years. And the life of a young boy cut short just a month later in July of 2022. 14-year-old Gavin Knupp killed in a hit-and-run in Berlin. Justice for Gavin became a rallying cry for people here on Delmarva and beyond.
We hope you enjoyed looking back at our history and some of the pivotal moments that shaped Delmarva. We thank you for allowing us into your homes every day and every night, and we look forward for many more years to come.
Thank you for joining us for this special broadcast commemorating WBOC's 70 years of serving Delmarva. Good night.
Good night.